Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A massive political storm has erupted over the income tax searches today at the BBC India offices. The Income Tax Department conducted surveys at BBC's offices in Delhi and Mumbai in connection with alleged tax evasion and transfer pricing irregularities. But the ecosystem has linked these searches with the alleged propaganda documentary on Prime Minister Modi and called it an undeclared emergency in the country. The opposition parties have claimed that the searches were nothing but petty retaliation for the BBC's documentary and that instead of acting against Adani, the government was targeting the BBC. The BJP has slammed the opposition for its unfounded criticism and asked it to let the Income Tax Department do its job. Now, sources have told Times Now that the tax department is looking into the manipulation of prices for unauthorized benefits and that the BBC has been persistently and deliberately violative of transfer price rules. The Income Tax Department has also said that the BBC is a repeat offender and has been reportedly non-compliant for years. Let's take a look at what transpired earlier today.
It's little over 10 a.m. and behind me there were several IT sleuths entering this building, knocking at BBC's door here at KG Marg in New Delhi.
The Mumbai unit has reportedly roped in other departments as well. The Income Tax Department maintains that these are not raids or searches, but the survey conducted to look into the alleged tax evasion on part of BBC.
Highly placed sources in Income Tax Department have told Times Now that BBC in India have been defiant and non-compliant to summons that have been issued earlier and diverting a significant amount of their profit. And that's the reason why these surveys are being carried out today.
It's close to 11:30 a.m. and the action has begun to unfold at the BBC office here in Mumbai. Reportedly, the income tax officials have also switched off the mobile phones of the staff members present inside the BBC office, and also the collection of their digital data has also been started with regards to the commercial purpose used for the BBC News.
This has triggered a massive political storm, with the opposition calling it as a predictable action, a sign of panic and a dictatorial move.
The BBC has said that it's fully cooperating with the authorities and hopes that the situation is going to be resolved soon. However, the opposition is relentless in its attack on the government. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is despite the fact that during the UPA regime, similar tax notices were sent to BBC, which were later even quashed by the Delhi High Court in 2014 and 2016. And two notices, remember, in 2009 and 2010 pertaining to earlier years. Not to forget, during the Congress regime, the party had even accused the BBC of doing notoriously anti-India stories and maligning India with willful misrepresentation. Let's now listen in to what the Congress had to say today.
यहाँ हम जेपीसी की मांग कर रहे हैं अडानी के मामले में, और वहाँ सरकार बीबीसी के पीछे पड़ी हुई है. विनाशकाले विपरीत बुद्धी.
बीबीसीच्या कार्यालयावरती दिल्लीमध्ये धाड पडलेली आहे, धाड टाकलेली आहे. एखाद्या प्रसार माध्यमाच्या कार्यालयावरती धाड टाकणं हे कोणत्या लोकशाहीत बसतं? म्हणजेच काय की तुम्ही आम्ही वाटेल ते करू, पण तुम्ही आवाज नाही उठवायचा. जर आवाज उठवाल तर चिरडून टाकू. ही जी एक पाशवी वृत्ती आपल्या देशामध्ये आज फोफावायला बघते, ती आपण वेळेमध्ये एकत्र आलो नाही आणि आपली ताकद वाढवली नाही तर उद्या संपूर्ण देश खाऊन टाकेल.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी बीबीसी से बहुत परेशान थी. उनके लिए बीबीसी पिछले एक महीने से सबसे बड़ा खतरा था. इससे सिर्फ प्रधानमंत्री जी की या केंद्र की नहीं, पूरे भारत की छवि जो है खराब हो रही है.
बीबीसी की जो डॉक्यूमेंट्री फिल्म बनी, उसमें ऐसा क्या नया था जिसे इस अधिनायक सुप्रीमेसिस्ट सरकार को गुस्सा आया? बीबीसी में जिस तरह के छापे पड़े हैं, समाजवादी पार्टी इसे डिफर करती है.
The BJP has hit right back at the ecosystem, with the Union Home Minister Amit Shah saying that the truth emerges despite 1,000 conspiracies surrounding it and that the BBC has been after Modi since 2002. The BJP has also called the BBC a brushed bakwas corporation. Listen in.
देखिए सत्य जो होता है इस पर 1000 कॉन्स्पिरेसी कर लो, कुछ नहीं होता है। वो करोड़ों सूर्य की भांति तेजस्वी बनकर ही बाहर आता है। ये तो मोदी जी के पीछे 2002 से कर रहे हैं और हर बार मोदी जी मजबूत होकर, सच्चे बनकर और जनता की ज्यादा लोकप्रियता हासिल कर बाहर आए हैं।
अगर कुछ गलत किया नहीं है, कानून का पालन किया है, तो फिर डर कैसा? बीबीसी के अगर कृत्य देखें तो यह पूरे विश्व की सबसे भ्रष्ट बकवास कॉरपोरेशन हो गई है। और दुख की बात यह है कि बीबीसी का प्रोपेगेंडा और कांग्रेस का एजेंडा एक साथ मेल खाता है। और यह कहना गलत नहीं है। क्यों ऐसा होता है कि कांग्रेस का हाथ देश विरोधियों के साथ?
I think the opposition is acting very prematurely because they do not know the reason why. They're just putting two and two together and making it a political issue. Fact of the matter is, the IT, before it conducts a raid like this, and I'm told it's starting with a survey, is entitled to do it. That's their job. I mean, there are income tax violations. Are we saying that BBC is above the law? Give the IT some time to establish its case and bring it out in the public realm before you start making these allegations.
So the legitimate question we are asking on the Newshour tonight, is this intimidation or routine investigation on BBC? That's the question and the debate. Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate in the Supreme Court. Dr. Sanjay Jha, author and suspended Congress leader. Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst, supports the Congress party. But my first question goes to Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, national spokesperson of the BJP. Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, the charges against the BJP are several, starting from intimidation, revenge, trying to kill press freedom in this country, to kill democracy. And on the other hand, your one-line statement is just about a routine search. The timing of this routine search, why is it just within a month of the banned documentary by the BBC, is the question raised by your critics. How do you respond?
Navika, it is not the Bharatiya Janata Party that has to respond to the frivolous charges of the opposition. Rather, it is the BBC that has to act like a responsible organization, law-abiding organization, and show the citizens of India that they believe in rule of law. They are not above the law of the country and the constitution. Number two, is it not correct that the IT department has served notices to the BBC? Now it is for the BBC, and they have made a statement that they are cooperating with the inquiry being held by the IT department. The question is this, that if the inquiry itself is suffering from the vice of malefice, why don't they move the court and get it quashed? Second, when the survey is being conducted and it's an ongoing process right now, what's this tearing rush of the opposition parties to give a clean chit to the BBC and condemn the IT department action? That itself speaks volumes, and it shows that with the poor track record that BBC has against India, the Congress party and the opposition parties have decided to stand with the BBC rather than have faith in the IT department. Last but not the least, when they make charges of taking away the rights of the citizens, of freedom of speech and expression, I am reminded how Indira Gandhi banned BBC for 2 years. It was Indira Gandhi who invoked emergency. And if there was a black day after independence in India, it was the imposition of emergency by Indira Gandhi. So the Congress party should just wait for the outcome of this survey and then comment. I think that would augur well. And last but not the least, one more thing I would say. They're questioning the timing. Navika, you tell me, we have shown that under Narendra Modi ji, all the investigating agencies and the IT department is truly independent and autonomous. So the IT department should ask the government, क्योंकि documentary आई है, मैं अभी रुक जाऊं या मैं अपना काम करूं? I think, nothing could be more frivolous as an argument given by the Congress. I think the IT department should be allowed to do their job.
Well, so Tehseen Poonawalla, my question to you arising out of what Gaurav Bhatia has said is simply this. 1970, Indira Gandhi had banned BBC, and the ban I think continued till 1972 and then 1975 again. And there have been occasions when members of parliament of the Congress party, 41 of them got together, to demand a ban and, get BBC out of this country. They have routinely made allegations that anti-India propaganda is done by the BBC. You have also, the Congress government has also sent notices pertaining to 2002, 2003, in 2009. And in 2010, pertaining to the Vajpayee government time period. Why is this suddenly become a charge of vendetta when Congress has routinely done this in the past?
Thank you, ma'am. Namaste, namaskar to all your viewers and to all my fellow panelists. Three things that are essentially said by the erudite Bajpa spokesperson. Number one, Indira ji evoked the emergency, and you rightly said, she banned BBC. So because a wrong happened by Indira ji, tomorrow the Bharatiya Janata Party will evoke the emergency and say, oh, Indira ji did it in 1970. Is that justified? Is there any sort of a logic in that? Point number two, let's come to the next thing. BBC is anti-national. I'm saying it's anti-national, it's terrible, it's bad for this country. So take action against those charges. What is the survey? And looking into people's phones, if there's a transfer price, share rigging, etc., are you going to look into journalists who are working today into allegations from 2002, 2003, 2008, 2010 or whenever, 2014 into what's happening? And there's a pattern, ma'am, a pattern that cannot be missed. NDTV is raided on June 2017, the Quint in October 2018, Greater Kashmir October 2020, NewsClick in February 2021, Bharat Samachar in July 2021, Dainik Bhaskar when it put out a report against a terrible mismanagement of COVID, July 2021 it's raided, The Wire November 2022. All of these media houses were critical of the government. Now I feel firmly somebody is misguiding the most honorable Prime Minister. This documentary would have got no traction. I've said so on your show. Suddenly they come up with hammers, they try to ban this documentary, it goes on every phone, students are screening it. Now when the attention is moved away from the documentary, you've gone and conducted this survey/raid saying whatever you want to say. But your track record speaks for itself. And the more you try to suppress whatever you're trying to hide, the more it will come out. How long are you going to try to suppress it? So if BBC is anti-national, or as Gaurav said, Bakwas, Brushed Corporation, you take action there against those anti-national charges. Why are you serving it when it's critical of you? That doesn't add up, nor do the other raids that have happened in what I just showed you.
Well, what was the Modi government doing? It was banning a documentary that would have probably shown the UPA government in poor light. So not a whimper from the Congress party then, but look at them all up in arms today. You see a pattern in this as well?
Good evening, Navika. There are four issues here. Number one, is the IT survey a bona fide technical investigation after providing enough notices to the BBC? The answer is yes. And BBC has always been anti-Modi. So that means the agency should never conduct a survey because it would be seen as vindictive move at all times. Number two, was the BBC similarly investigated by the Congress? The answer is yes, in 2009 and 2010. But was India called a fascist state then? The answer is no. In fact, the UPA forced even amnesty to close down its offices. But then again, India was a shining beacon of democracy and not a fascist state. Number three, is the BBC a fake news peddling, selective and fraudulent organization? The answer is yes, and I have spoken on this multiple times in the last month with 27 facts. Number four, Navika, this is important. I have said this before and I say it again. Tehseen also does have a point. Out of the 10 media houses that this government has raided over past so many years, 9 out of 10 have been critical of the current dispensation. And every CBI, ED or IT raid or a survey carries the baggage of being politically motivated, even if it is not. Because one, the investigative agencies are not apolitical or independent, they remain parrots. And when you domesticate a parrot, it finds its favorite shoulder. And right now the favorite shoulder is of Modi. Number two, Years of trial and error have now resulted in an established recourse that those who are raided or surveyed take. A, if the raided are a media house or an NGO like BBC or Amnesty, they cry government vendetta. And B, if the raided are politicians, they simply join the BJP. From Goa to Manipur to Bengal to Karnataka, every single politician when in trouble has dipped himself into this Behti Ganga that is the BJP. Then, miraculously, all leads go cold. All investigations come to a dead end. Remember Mukul Roy and how the investigations on him went cold when he joined the BJP? They have restarted, by the way, after he has returned to the TMC. Remember when the BJP's GVL Narasimha Rao had demanded an ED and IT raid and had written to the Rajya Sabha Ethics Committee alleging involvement of TDP's YS Chaudhary in, quote, massive financial bungling and fraud of 5,700 crores, unquote, and sought his disqualification over, quote, a serious breach of ethics, unquote. Well, before the Rajya Sabha could act, Mr. Chaudhary promptly joined the BJP, forcing Mr. Rao to eat the humble pie. That the CBI, ET and ID agencies are the most potent weapon in a politician's hand is not conspiratorial cynicism, Navika, but a statement based on precedent. Just give me 30 seconds. Remember, it was the BJP that staged a nationwide protest in May 2010, crying that the UPA was using the CBI, ED and IT to, quote, blackmail opposition leaders to toe the line on budget proposals, unquote. And in September 2013, Mr. Jaitley complained to the PM Manmohan Singh that the CBI and IT and ED was being used to frame Modi and Shah. In fact, when the BJP was in opposition, it had promised to make these agencies independent. But the moment it came to power in 2014, the parrot remained a parrot, just the shoulders changed.
Well, Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, you know, the public is watching and they know a simple addition of 2 plus 2.
You know, we are so glad that the public is watching, and the public is watching that from a government of the UPA which misused and abused CBI, ED, IT department, and the Honorable Supreme Court had to warn the government and phrase the term the caged parrot for CBI. Now, the country is watching that Narendra Modi ji's government is giving a free hand to the investigating agencies, and they have become hawks who are biting the corrupt. I would first respond to Tehseen. Tehseen said that the argument given by me is that 2 wrongs would not make a right, and Indira Gandhi banned BBC, thus, you know, what we are doing is also justified. No, Tehseen. My argument was very simple. The argument was that Congress has no moral authority to question and prejudge an issue which is still pending and the survey is going on. Second, when you talked about Greater Kashmir, Quint, Print and other examples, I challenge you on Times Now. Can you show one judicial order of the High Court or the Supreme Court where the activity undertaken by the investigating agency has been found to be suffering with the vice of political vendetta? I challenge you, when your turn comes, you please answer. To my friend Anand, I would like to say, Anand bhai, it doesn't worry us when organizations like the BBC are anti-Modi, because Modi ji and Bharatiya Janata Party are strong enough to ensure that we win the confidence of the people, and we have been winning all throughout. But when such organizations become anti-India, definitely our agencies would not be mute spectators. You were asking us about what action has been taken. You rightly also answered it by giving an example of Amnesty India, who was, after the action was taken, forced to shut their operation because they were spewing venom without any facts. And let me end by giving you an example how BBC is a habitual offender. They showed the India map without Kashmir. Once they were warned, they apologized, they corrected that mistake. It happened again in 2020 and 2021. So they are habitual offenders, and I don't think they are above law. Law is taking its own course and against our country.
May I just respond in one line? Gaurav, 2 things. If they are doing something wrong with the map or they are challenging the integrity of India the territorial integrity of India, act under those laws, not under income tax surveys. So that argument defeats itself. But to your question, the judicial order, Gaurav, you know very well, and everyone on this panel knows, the process is the punishment.
Yes,
over 10 journalists in Uttar Pradesh were jailed, some for showing your midday meal scams. The Supreme Court had to intervene to ask them to get released. The Supreme Court is routinely criticizing your government, and you are not doing anything about it. The process, you know, Gaurav, is the punishment.
To your question.
He is responding.
One response to your question.
Yes.
Okay, one response, 10 seconds. Navika, very rightly said by Tehseen, he said the process itself is a punishment. Imagine Narendra Modi ji, he has been cleared by the Honorable Supreme Court, waited patiently for 2 decades, and still you do not accept the verdict. What kind of punishment is that? Can you please spell it out?
No, we accept
well, that's nobody does accept that verdict. But when you talk about the BBC's repeat offending, I just want to show you a few statements made by the BBC. Beaten and tortured by Indian Army. These are security forces in Kashmir. That's what BBC says. But on the other hand, look at them saying about Taliban, and they say Taliban बिना भारी खून खराबे के शहरों पर कब्जा कर कैसे लेता है? तो Taliban is probably kinder than Indian Army is the point BBC is trying to make. Not just that, it says भारत की GDP में बड़ा उछाल भी चिंताजनक है. If India's GDP rises, it is worrying. But for China, and we all know BBC is funding by China, कोरोना की मार के बीच चीन की अर्थव्यवस्था में जबरदस्त वृद्धि कैसे? So China should do it, China should do it, India suspect. Then it says coronavirus, lockdowns in Europe saved millions of lives. And then he says about the India case, India COVID-19, PM Modi did not consult before lockdown. So, you know, he's on the mat, not for saving lives, but for not consulting people. And then about Deepavali, which is the most widely celebrated Hindu festival, they say, शोर और प्रदूषण से मुक्त शांत और सुंदर हो ऐसी दिवाली. This is what BBC says. And when they talk about New Year's Eve in London, they actually say New Year's Eve, hundreds of thousands gather for London fireworks. So fireworks in London create no pollution, but fireworks in Indian Diwalis create pollution. Just a little bit of an example, Dr. Sanjay Jha, about BBC. So my question to you is, why is the opposition batting for the BBC? Why? Number one. Number two, when you question the timing, my friend, why not question the timing of the BBC as well? Before every election, there is a BBC documentary that just comes up. 2002, what happened? The verdict is out, known to everybody, but just ahead of 2024, the same story comes in a documentary. I want to ask you, 24 elections prior to that, 2019 elections prior to that, 2014 elections prior to that, why don't you question the timing of the BBC documentaries as well?
Navika, let me give you two short responses. Number one, I think all of us know here that the action taken against BBC today is directly correlated to the BBC documentary on the Gujarat riots, which apparently is a government document. It is of the British Foreign Office that said that Mr. Modi is directly responsible for the genocide that happened in Gujarat. If Gaurav Bhatia is to be believed, and the BJP is really so discredited, the BJP has zero credibility, the BJP is a third-rate media house, then my question to Gaurav Bhatia is, why are you so, in a panicky mode?
I think you
and
so not the
cornered.
BJP.
It doesn't make any sense. Why is the BJP looking so desperate? Why is the BJP looking so cornered and caged? I mean, that is frankly beyond my imagination. But the second point, very important. I have followed, Navika, several media outlets for a long period of my life. No organization is perfect. But I want to tell you with full responsibility on your program, if tomorrow this government, and it's capable of doing that because we all know this is an authoritarian government, this is a democratically elected dictatorship that we are actually living under. If they go after the Time Group or they come after Times Now, trust me, I'll be the first person standing who will fight for you, and will also remain the last man standing. Because I believe the media and the fourth estate has a critical role to play in saving any democracy. Point number 3, as far as the BBC is concerned, I can tell you this. The BBC, by the way, which is funded by the British taxpayer, is one of the biggest critiques of any establishment. They may be slightly more, shall we say, tolerant of the Labour because they may be slightly left-leaning, but they gave such a hard time to Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of Britain himself, that Mr. Johnson was very keen to defund the BJP. So this is an organization that actually is very anti-establishment by its very nature. So I really don't understand why the BJP, if it believes that the BBC, however, is pathetic, is puerile, is a pedestrian organization, don't waste your time. Let the world see what is there in the documentary. But they won't, because the timing for the BJP is actually hurting them. Adani and the BBC documentary is a double whammy for the Prime Minister himself. Because in both of these, it's the Prime Minister who happens to be the singular target. Now, you know, you can be the Prime Minister. Mr. Modi can be Prime Minister for 50 years. But the truth is, your legacy is based on your past actions and not on your post alone. So I think this is the legitimate right of any democratic platform to question anybody. Just because Mr. Modi is a Prime Minister today, it doesn't make him God. And if tomorrow he's an ex-Prime Minister, it doesn't make us lose our respect in him either. So let's be very clear here. Politicians have feet of clay, and anyone who questions them, any media that questions them, they need to be backed. And I have proof of that, Navika. My own party doesn't come on your program very often. I believe they're wrong. I am very proud to be on your program and on your channel because I believe any democratic platform needs to be heard.
Well, no wonder you are suspended as well. So much for democracy within your own party. But Dr. Sanjay Jha, may you also note the fact that Guardian has reported several times, and you're a widely read person, presenters of the BBC are facing tax evasion charges even from the UK government. And they have admitted that special tax vehicles should be made for them so that they can avoid paying millions in national insurance contributions. Also, BBC has been routinely pulled up for tax evasions by the UK government. But here, they've found huge allies in the opposition, which is talking about this government going after them. So, Ishkaran Bhandari, my question...
Just a quick response to that. That is exactly the kind of democracy we need, Navika. Here you have a BBC, which apparently is, according to the BJP, left-leaning, questioned by the Guardian, which is, by the way, quite far left, if you ask me. So that is exactly what the conversation should be about. It's not a question about whether you're right or left.
Where is the problem? Where is the problem in India? People, people who don't agree with Modi are on our channel every night. Tehseen is here, you are here. So where is the problem? Where is the death of democracy? Anand Ranganathan is also raising his hand. Anand?
Yeah, Navika, मेरा नाम भी ले लेते हैं तहसीन के साथ. No, but I'm saying while I applaud my good friend Dr. Sanjay Jha for saying members of the Congress under the UPA, did they protest when the similar IT survey was conducted under the UP of the BBC? Did they? Yes or no? They were on Twitter as well. Did they? No, they didn't. So now when you bring up that issue, they will say, what about it? They will say two wrongs don't make a right. The fact is, when they were wielding power, they were silent. That is the question.
And let me also tell you, both under Finance Minister Mr. P. Chidambaram, if intimidation is how you call it, my income tax has been under so-called survey for 5 years, my friend, for 5 years. Only difference being that we didn't belong to a media which sat on the streets and said, hi democracy mar gayi, hi democracy mar gayi. We didn't do that. We did our job while one salary which went into your account, you had to hire chartered accountants to go and respond to several of the questions that were asked month after month, year after year. So Dr. Sanjay Jha, we didn't ask for help. We continued with our job, and we didn't think that this was intimidation or revenge. It's it's the other way around. People wear it on their sleeve almost as if it's a medal, and it's that ecosystem that I'm talking about, Ishkaran Bhandari. Is the ecosystem rattled only because a survey has been conducted under section 133A, which means they can go ask questions, and this is not a search or a raid? Even that is a problem in democratic India?
Navika ji, by giving your own example of how you were so-called surveyed by the finance ministry under UPA, you have killed the debate itself, because there they were targeting an individual journalist. Here it's a media house, and for an individual journalist to face it is 1,000 times worse and 1,000 times more intimidatory, though of course you did not get intimidated. In fact, the people...
No, there was nothing to get intimidated, because there was nothing in the bank account other than EMIs, but that's fine.
But the attempt, that is the point. The attempt at an individual journalist is what they were trying to achieve. They did not achieve their aims. But let us come to this case in itself. Now the UK government can investigate BBC for tax evasion. In fact, they can investigate individual presentators for tax evasion. But Indian government, if it investigates, and it's not the first case, they have investigated Chinese firms, Oppo, Vivo, etc. also, for the same reasons, that the transfer pricing is happening, that they're undervaluing or overvaluing the bills and services from outside India. So the Indian government has, or the income tax authorities have realized this problem in the world of globalization, where different countries are evading taxes in India and different entities are evading taxes in India. So that's a very normal procedure to do, which they are doing. But of course, because you cannot answer on facts, you have to say that it isn't targeting of an organization happening. Though of course, let us be very clear about this, because the investigations do not lead to logical conclusions and convictions and penalties and fines, they get the chance to do so, raise the question of timing. But India is a land where every few months you have elections. We just got through massive midterm elections of 2021, then 22, then now we will have 10 elections this year. So anytime the government takes action, they will call it some timing or the other, but that does not mean that you do not investigate things which need to be investigated. And one last point, I do not know why that was banned, because that's a very separate issue, and I have said many times that the ban of BBC documentary was wrong. In fact, it has made more people watch it than would have watched it. Nobody would have watched it. But
fair point.
If there is a tax evasion, that is documentary, that is financial issues, that definitely has to be investigated.
Mr. Sanjay Hegde, is it a routine survey investigation which has turned into a political circus?
Well, thank you, Navika, for finally coming to me. And before I begin,
well, there is a member of the BRS still waiting. So,
yeah. Okay, a very happy cow hug day to all, including the panel.
Depends on who you're calling the cow.
No, I'm not trying to derail the debate. The point is simply this: that as far as the Modi government is concerned, it has more to fear from its friends than from its opponents. Nobody, as so many of your panelists said, nobody would have watched the BBC debate, the BBC documentary. But the banning and now this action will make more people want to see it all over. You mentioned the Guardian and what it said about the BBC. How is the Guardian reporting it today? And the Guardian is not India's opposition. The Guardian says BBC offices in India raided by tax officials amid Modi documentary fallout. Whatever happens, their linkage is more or less established in the public mind and in the international mind. Now, what will it tell the international investors and the others about systems in India? That there is a strong man. If you annoy the strong man, then even so-called independent institutions can come after you. Somebody was also mentioning how the Congress reacted to the BBC.
Navika,
it's an irony of history that when Mrs. Indira Gandhi was assassinated, Rajiv Gandhi had to turn to the BBC to know for sure what had happened in Delhi. It is the credibility that the BBC commands, which is still not lost. And by all means, go ahead, survey.
Credibility, Sanjay Hegde, credibility. It's 2003 report on WMD and the following attacks in Iraq, in which, they literally, there was a war because of what they reported, and then they only apologized 6 years later, 2009, after a war and after the killing of several people on every single side. You're saying they still have credibility? I mean, I wish you were that magnanimous to Indian media houses as well.
Even today, if you go into the villages, something has to be checked, they will say BBC pe aaya hai, whether you like it or you don't like it. So I gave you that example of Rajiv Gandhi also turning in to the channel, to the radio on BBC.
So because Rajiv Gandhi turns into a channel, then therefore that is the most credible channel, despite what happened in 2003. I'm coming to all of you, but my friend Karthik Reddy hasn't spoken. So Gaurav Bhatia, I'll just go to Karthik Reddy first, and then you can respond to everybody who has raised questions. And Karthik Reddy, there is an anti-India slant. There has been an anti-India slant by the BBC, not just in the BJP period, even before that, the Congress has complained over that. The question is, just at the mere mention of the word survey, the opposition in India is up in arms, and once again, democracy is dead, press freedom is dead, are the calls that are coming in. Are you jumping to conclusions is what I'm asking. Should you not wait for the verdict? Or at least for details?
Hello Navika ji. Thank you for finally letting me speak. Anyway, at the onset, let me be very clear. Let me distance myself and my party. We are not here to take the side of the BBC. We are not the spokesperson of BBC to hoots with what happens with that organization, and if it was surveyed, probed, raided, we do not care. The problem is the stand taken by BBC is not anti-India. It might be anti-India, but my worry is the stand taken by BJP is anti-India. Let me tell you why I say this. Navika ji, from the last 15-20 days, India is under scanner by many organizations, news organizations, government organizations, international, national. Everybody is looking into India, and we all know the reasons. One, of course, the BBC's documentary, and the second part is obviously the Adani's whole mess. And my issue today is when Gaurav kind of said twice that the agencies under the Honorable Prime Minister are free to work. No, Gaurav, they are not free to work. In the last 9 years, they've been hostage under the BJP. And let me tell you why I say this. Navika ji, the problem with the BJP that we have right now in this issue is BJP is turning India into a constructive, mature democracy into a banana republic. विश्व गुरु को हिंदुस्तान को विश्व गुरु नहीं, विश्व का जोकर बना रहे बीजेपी. The reason I say this is BJP today is the IT, CBI, ED, they're all run by BJP. This is a direct allegation that we are making. BBC today is probed because of transfer pricing, whereas Adani transferred money into stocks from offshore accounts, and that's not probed, that's ignored completely. Tax evasion is done by BJP, it's probed, good. Adani, there's an allegation of black money routing into his stocks, and that is not probed. BBC has done unauthorized business in India, and that should be probed, all right. But Adani can take over hostile business, hostile take over many businesses, and that should be completely ignored. This is the problem.
All right, Gaurav Bhatia responds. Litany of charges against Gaurav Bhatia and his party BJP. Allow him to respond.
You know, it's very heartening that this debate is being very well watched by the entire country. The BJP is saying that rule of law should prevail, the IT department should be allowed to do its job, and nobody is above the law of the country. But in this panel on your debate, Navika, what I've heard so far, Sanjay Bhai, who is here, who is a colleague of mine, said, जो लिंक है बीबीसी और सर्वे का वो इस्टेब्लिश हो गया है, so he becomes the court and he gives a verdict, वो लिंक भी इस्टेब्लिश है. Then he goes on to say बीबीसी की credibility तो है. To him I would like to say, you are entitled to your opinion, but for billion of Indians, it is the BBC which has been acting against the interest of the country. And I want to ask you a simple question. Whether it is the Adani issue, if you really feel and you are so convinced some wrongdoing has been done, number one, somebody from the Congress party also can move the court and get an order of CBI investigation or an SIT. The matter is now sub judice before the Honorable Supreme Court. So you should have faith in the Honorable Supreme Court. Second, the Congress party, where it has its government in Chhattisgarh, in Rajasthan, also in Jharkhand, there are contracts and agreements with the Adani group. If he is so dubious and he is so corrupt, why don't you forthwith cancel all the contracts? This is the duplicity. You know, they would not cancel the contracts, they will do business with him, but they will blame the government. Last but not the least, Navika, BBC is saying we are cooperating with the IT department. सर्वे हो रहा है, धुआं कांग्रेस पार्टी के दफ्तर में क्यों हो रहा है? क्या कांग्रेस पार्टी knows better than the BBC itself what stand they have to take in the survey and the queries that have been made by the IT department? This only shows that their hatred for Modi far exceeds the love that they have for our country. They have no faith in the Supreme Court.
Dr. Sanjay Jha raising his hand, Tehseen raising his hand. Dr. Sanjay Jha, you know, people will today find this so ironical. The party that brought in retrospective taxation, they are worried about FDI in India, foreign investments in India. कमाल करते हो भाई संजय झा.
नाविका, दो छोटे अंकों में मैं जवाब देना चाहूंगा. सबसे पहले गौरव भाटिया, on Adani the big issue is who owns their offshore tax havens, because those funds are investing only in Adani stocks. You don't have to be a genius, even a child will tell you that is a case of share price manipulation. Anyway, the second point. Yeah. Okay, no, 1 minute.
Have faith in
yes,
the judiciary of the country.
It is also,
yes.
Excuse me, if you have so much of faith in the systems of the country,
So
appoint a
JPC.
JPC.
Do you have faith in the
JPC, even the BJP will be part of the JPC. Why are you scared? What are you trying to hide?
You don't have faith in the Supreme Court? The Congress leaders, first of all, you do not represent the Congress anymore. The Congress party itself said
Tell the people of India on Times Now, why are you scared?
Probe.
Why is the Prime Minister scared? What are you trying to hide?
Reading the newspaper.
Well, rhetoric will get you everywhere in the elections, but
only one line.
What is your one line?
Only one line to Gaurav Bhatia, just one line. In 2013, a very wise man said while campaigning that all Indian news channels should raise to the standard of BBC. That man was एक अकेला सब पे भारी नरेंद्र मोदी जी. वो तब मिसलीड हो गए या आज मिसलीड हो गए? इसका उत्तर आप प्लीज दे दीजिए.
बोल रहे हो, फिर से झूठ बोल रहे हो.
चला दीजिए मोदी जी का बाइट.
That wise man said that these people have faith in the BBC but not in Doordarshan and Prasar Bharati.
तो BBC में था ना, मोदी जी ने तारीफ की ना.
The person that he was talking about.
तो जिस BBC में faith है, आज faith है तो संजय हेगड़े is right.
Investigating agency of the country.
Well, the question tonight is only this, and Anand Ranganathan, my question to you is, have they ever fought for any other media house and its, and its values or attack on its various issues like they are fighting for the BBC? Touche. No, why don't we Indian companies get the same kind of support? हमें तो बैन कर दिया था 9 साल के लिए कांग्रेस पार्टी ने, आते ही नहीं थे.
No, Navika, they have fought for a media house, but unfortunately that media house has been bought by Adani now. तो करे तो क्या करे? जाए तो जाए कहाँ? वाह मोदी जी वाह.
हिपोक्रेसी की कोई सीमा होती है.
So what happens to that democracy, Mr. Kartik Reddy? What happens to that democracy? When opposition parties stop talking to Indian media houses but feel the pain of BBC?
See, at the beginning itself, I kind of made it clear that I do not want to take sides of the BBC today, but I want to ask Gaurav 3 straight questions. There have been allegations of stock bluffing. There have been allegations of black money routing. There have been allegations of profits and losses misquoting. Of Adani, this is not BBC. Which court has asked you to probe BBC, and who is asking you not to probe Adani? The country wants to know. Then you kind of deflect everything
straightforward question. Straightforward question. I need a straightforward response. And the response that the matter is sub judice is not enough. Why can't the government be proactive in this case, just as it is in the BBC case? That's the question.
Gauravji, 5 seconds. Can you give me 5 seconds, Gauravji? I beg of you.
Exactly. Navika ji, straightforward answer I will give. Anand bhai, just a sec. Navika ji, you are always very well conversant with the facts. Do you know what has transpired in the Supreme Court? The government has said that we are constituting a committee and the names have to be forwarded to the Honorable Supreme Court. It's the government stand. We are not treating it as an adversary. So please know the facts. And second, SEBI has spoken, the finance minister has spoken, SBI has spoken, LIC has spoken. Now it is for these agencies, especially the SEBI, to decide whether something illegal has been done or not. It is not for the Congress to pass a judgment. Please,
all right. That should
Mr.
satisfy the opposition. Anand Ranganathan. Yes, Anand.
Yes. To my good friend Mr. Kartik of BRS, I just want to say one thing. You see, it is the normal procedure in law. Everyone would back me up on that. That if you allege something, and want investigation against someone, then you suspend every interaction with that person. So will on record Mr. Kartik say that till such time Mr. Adani is investigated, we are going to hold or suspend our 5,000 crore investment that Adani has in our state. Just say we suspend every project running Adani project in Telangana. Say it.
Here, see, here's the case. May I come in, Navika? The Adani investment in Telangana happened by acquisition. It was not done by, the government did not help him to get whatever investment.
That's exactly what the BJP is saying. That what they've got is through tendering. That's exactly what the BJP is saying. Kamal hai.
So easy to
Ishkaran Bhandari. The cat is out of the bag. Tehseen Poonawala. If the Congress.
It is free market. It is free market if Adani invests in any non-BJP state, but it is government action if Adani invests in a BJP state. अब इसका भी क्या जवाब दे सकते हैं? इंडिया में 2 economic systems चल रहे हैं इनके हिसाब से.
Let's investigate. Let's get it out right. Let's get an investigation. Let's get a probe in.
You have the state resources. Take action. Why investigate? Just take action. You have the state resources. He's operating in your state.
I'll explain that, Ishkaran. I'll explain that.
Does the central government allow an investigation into an Adani group?
No, but what about Rajasthan? Land has been given. There is no bidding there.
Yes.
There is no bidding there. Then
so there are two.
File a FIR and suspend all projects.
I'll answer that, Anand, if you allow me to. Sure. Can I answer it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Should those projects be suspended? No, yes or no? Why?
No. And I'll answer it why state governments are right and central government is wrong. Because state governments have given something based upon what only is in the domain of the central government to investigate whether these funds have come into India illegally. That neither Telangana can do, neither Rajasthan can do.
If you are wanting the truth to come out, then why don't you stop? Why don't you put pressure on the center? Moral pressure, my friend, but morality in politics, well, that is asking for too much. Morality and politics cannot go together. And while the opposition cries vendetta when it comes to BBC, I don't know why everybody is calling BBC as BJP, but just as they keep calling vendetta on action on the BBC, the question is, when it comes to Adani, they want investigation. They want a little leeway in their hands, but they don't want to stop doing business with the group. What does this mean? Is it only about rhetoric and doublespeak in politics? That's a question all parties, and whether they are on the treasury benches or on the opposition benches, that's what people of India are going to judge them on. Who'll come out the winner? We'll wait and watch. Thank you very much to all my panelists for joining me on this big debate on the Newshour tonight. Good night. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same show, the Newshour at 9.